Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Southern Shores Town Council meeting for August the 6th, 2024. Let me do an official gavel in just as our Mayor Pro Tem is coming in. Thanks, Matt. If you'll all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll have a short moment of silence. Thank you. Council, there's an agenda in front of us. Are there any amendments to this agenda as presented, or can I entertain a motion to approve?
I move approval of the agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Thank you. We also, Council, have a consent agenda that consists of a number of budget amendments, most of which are a result of expenditures that just didn't get done before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So when you carry things over, you have to do a budget amendment that's according to Bonnie. And then we have some other budget amendments. And then we have minutes, which were emailed out earlier. Are there any concerns about the consent agenda as presented? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second? Very
Second.
good. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Say no. Very good. We're very lucky, fortunate, and quite grateful to have some really nice presentations tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to our police chief, Chief Cole, to get us started.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. It's my honor. We're going to introduce some of our new officers, but I'd like to start first with now Sergeant Chris Simpson. He is here. His wife, Jennifer, is here. Their beautiful little daughter, Ava, as well as his mom and dad, Larry and Melanie, that are in the audience. Just a couple of quick things. What I like to do first is have him sworn in as a sergeant. Then we have a couple more presentations for him. One is his advanced certificate. And then Bonnie told me that his 5 years was coming up, so let's do that too. So we're going to get three things out of the way here. Chris, could I have you and Jen come up, please? All right, and real quick, before we do the official swearing in, just to give you a little bit of background, his wife, Jen, and their daughter, Ava. Chris is a lifetime long resident of the Outer Banks. He graduated from First Flight High School in 2006, about the time I retired from New York. Wow. After high school, he worked as a contractor for the phone company, but he always dreamed of a career in law enforcement. In 2013, he enrolled in the Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy, Knight Academy in Manteo. He graduated in 2014, and he began his law enforcement career with Kitty Hawk Police Department in 2014. And that was just before, and then he came to Southern Shores Police Department in 2019. As an experienced and well-rounded officer, during his time with the Southern Shores Police Department, he has obtained his associate's degree in criminal justice, his advanced certificate, which we will award to him tonight, and his traffic enforcement investigative certificates. And again, Chris is married to his wife Jennifer, and they have a daughter, Ava. Now we'll do the swearing in. Can you see it?
All right. Please raise your right hand and state your name. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as sergeant in and for the town of Southern Shores, Dare County, North Carolina? That you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof. That you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States. That you will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of the state. That you will not be influenced in any manner on account or personal bias or prejudice, and that you will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of your office as law enforcement officer according to the best of your skills, ability, and judgment. So help you God. Congratulations.
Thank you. While Chris is standing there, just a little bit of history on his advanced certificate. The purpose of Law Enforcement Officers Professional Certificate Program is to recognize the level of competence of law enforcement officers serving in the governmental agencies within the state of North Carolina. It's to foster an increased interest in college and education and professional law enforcement training programs, and to attract the highly qualified individuals into law enforcement careers. This program is a method by which the dedicated officers may receive recognition for advanced education, professional training, on-the-job experience. And just to give you an idea, Chris fell under one of the items is that you have to have at least an associate's degree from accredited institution or college. Also accumulated at least 36 points. Now that's not hours, that's points. Those points equal about 720 hours of training, which is a lot. And at least 9 years of credible experience. And Chris has 5 years with us, and he has 5 years with the town of Kitty Hawk for a total of 10 years. Just to give you an idea of the education, each semester hour of college equals 1 point. So, and he has 30, he's earned at least 36. Training, 20 classroom hours of commission approved law enforcement training equals 1 point. And then the experience must be a full-time sworn officer of a law enforcement agency. So Chris, I'd like to give you your advanced certificate.
Wow.
And lastly, the mayor is going to present you with 5 years. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Service. This is a small token of our appreciation. Please know how all of us in the community at large are so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarge. I want to read a quick bio on the next two, our newly hired officers. Sophia Wright, she was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. After graduating high school in 2016, Sophia moved to North Carolina with her family, where she started her criminal justice journey in 2017. She started taking criminal justice courses at Halifax Community College. And then in the fall of 2018, Sophia had the opportunity to go to the Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy. After she completed that, Sophia began her law enforcement career with the Elizabeth City Police Department. And she spent 5.5 years there, and she brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the town of Southern Shores Police Department. She's also a certified EMT, which is not a bad thing to have. So that both of our female officers are actually now certified EMT. So, and then we have Tucker. His mom and dad are here, Kathy and Dave. Officer Tucker Melton is from Currituck County. He spent a large portion of his childhood in youth development programs through North Carolina 4-H, where he focused on community service and citizenship. He attended J.P. Knapp Early College High School and later enrolled in Appalachian State University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in environmental biology with a minor in criminal justice. He enjoys hunting, fishing, college football, participating in shooting sports competition, and meeting members of the community. Prior to working with the Southern Shores Police Department, Officer Melton, he worked for the health department in Currituck County. And he says he's excited to be working in our community and serving our citizens. This time, I'd like to swear in both of these as new police officers for the town of Southern Shores. Got it?
Please state your name. Do you solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, to be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, that you will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state, that you will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice, and that you will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of your office as law enforcement officer according to the best of your skill, ability, and judgment. So help you God. Welcome.
Thank you. You guys can leave, I got to stay. But I want one more introduction. Our community resource officer, which I had planned on getting here even earlier, but it's always nice to be able to put a face to our community resource officer. So I'd like to introduce Garrett Jones. His father is in the audience. He is a United States Marshal. Garrett, if you recall, his brother Dylan served us for a couple of good years with the community resource officer position, and Garrett's carrying on the same tradition. We've had nothing but good compliments, not only from the officers, but also from the community. And when you're given a $50 ticket and people are still complimenting you, you're doing something right. So, but I would like to introduce Garrett Jones to you. And Jennifer's on vacation, so I don't have a report, so you're probably happy about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. Our next presentation is from our good friends at the Visitors Bureau. Jeff, Lee, we're glad to have you here. Welcome.
Tough act to follow. Congratulations. Good evening, Mayor, Council. On June 26, we introduced the Outer Banks Promise, a destination pledge aimed at fostering responsible behavior and deepening respect for our local culture and natural environment. By showcasing the unique and special qualities of the Outer Banks, we hope to encourage everyone to take small but impactful steps to protect the area for future generations. The Outer Banks Promise is the result of ongoing work from Visitors Bureau staff and a Tourism Board appointed special committee. This 22-member special committee was charged with implementing the Long-Range Tourism Management Plan, also known as the LRTMP. This plan, as you may recall, provides a 10-year roadmap for responsible growth of Dare County tourism while preserving and even benefiting the environment, culture, and quality of life for residents. I'd like to take a moment and thank Councilman Botanik for serving on the Dare County Tourism Board and Mayor Maury for serving on the LRTMP Special Committee. We truly appreciate your leadership and support as we continue to think strategically about what Dare County tourism looks like. Now I'd like to introduce Jeff Schwarzenberg, Community Engagement Manager at the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau. This is a new position at the Bureau and another recommendation that was found within the LRTMP. I just hope that all of our follow through on the LRTMP recommendations go as well as our hiring of Jeff. He's been a great addition to the team. It's my pleasure to turn it over to him now to share a little bit more about the Outer Banks Promise. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to come here and present about the Outer Banks Promise. It's very exciting. A few months ago, we collaborated with a local cinematographer, Nick McLean, to capture Outer Banks residents in their element to help bring the Outer Banks Promise to life visually. The result is a powerful 1-minute video that we'd like to share with you now, if possible.
The Outer Banks is an amazing natural wonder and has supported a special way of life. Let's do our part and take care of it. We promise to
discover this land of history and inspiration with a spirit of kindness and appreciation.
Let's turn what ifs into let's be prepared. Pack it in, pack it out, and leave no trace.
Wander with wonder, sticking to roads and paths.
Love the beach, respect the ocean.
Be a wildlife star, observing animals safely from afar.
Support local. Small acts have big impacts. Let's all work together and make a promise to protect the Outer Banks.
Great, thank you. So hopefully that shines a little brighter light into the what and the why behind our destination pledge, the Outer Banks Promise. Ultimately, what we're asking people to do, both residents and visitors, is to make a promise to protect this place by looking at what makes this place special and why it's worth protecting for future generations. So I think she left already, but future generations like Ava and her kids and her grandkids, and really, you know, the small business owner that you saw in the video there, small actions have big impacts. And if we all do our part, if we all take those small steps to help protect the Outer Banks, hopefully that'll really, again, have a big impact as we move forward. So generally speaking, creating such a destination pledge really it engages residents and visitors' emotions to inspire them to show their level of care for the Outer Banks. It also encourages them to take action rather than passively reading a set of guidelines. We certainly didn't want this to be a finger-pointing mandate of, hey, welcome to the Outer Banks, but don't do this, don't do that. It's not that kind of approach. It also asks them to make their promise public by signing the pledge online as a show of support. And as Lee mentioned, we launched the Outer Banks Promise back in June. We're still in the very early stages of awareness and education. So far, to help spread the word, we've activated some of our digital media assets at the Bureau, also engaged in local and regional marketing partnerships, advertising, And we've launched some grassroots efforts at our welcome centers as well as local community events. We'll continue to do that as we move forward. So as we move forward, how can you, our Dare County neighbors, help to show your support and spread the word? Well, the easiest thing you can do is to visit obxpromise.com to learn more and to make your promise online by filling out the online form. It's super simple. It literally just takes a moment to do that to show your support. If you're affiliated with a Dare County business, association, organization, or municipality, we recently created a partner toolkit that provides suggested website, email, social media copy, links to images, that video that you just saw, certain ways that you can plug and play and help share that information, because certainly the more support we receive in amplifying that message, the greater the impact's going to be. Like I said, this isn't a quick burst, short campaign. It's a key strategic step, like Lee said, into a long-term commitment that the Visitors Bureau, the Tourism Board, and our LRTMP Special Committee has made as we explore responsible ways to manage the positive and negative impacts of tourism in Dare County. So again, we truly appreciate the opportunity to share the Outer Banks Promise. We hope that all of you in the room will go online, again, obxpromise.com, show your support there. We're more than happy to answer any questions that anyone may have, not only about the promise, but about the long-range tourism plan. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jeff. Council, anybody have any questions for Jeff or Lee?
I'll just add that this is my first year on the tourism board, and I'm amazed at the work that's done by the tourism board. It doesn't just happen. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes by the crew over there in Manio that manages it, and it's really it's just rewarding to see it. Number one, I remember when I first got on there, I said, if you travel a lot and you come back here, you don't realize how special this place is. And the promise does a lot to say about that, is what it does. The other thing is I think that tax dollars that are collected on meals and on occupancy are spent smartly. And there's a lot of things that we're doing to make this place safe and enjoyable place to be. But I also like to clean it up and leave it the way you found it. That's the way we like to do it. So I just want to commend them on what they're doing at the tourism board, because it is quite a feat to run this whole county, all the way down to Hatteras Village, all the way up to Duck. So thanks. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You
Mark.
Just one
Rob?
other, besides the Visitors Bureau website, is this on, any of these videos on Current TV?
Currently, no, but that's a great
Okay.
avenue to explore for sure.
I'm the town's representative on Current TV, and I did not remember seeing it there. But putting it up on Current TV may be another avenue that you can get the message out.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Good job. Yes?
We have shared the toolkit with the county, but we'll explore that specifically.
Yeah, the county included a link to it as well as a link to the video in their August newsletter, which is great. But adding that to Current TV gives them more content too, so that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming out tonight. Next, we'll hear from our Deputy Town Manager, our Planning Director, Wes Haskett. Good evening, Wes.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, council members. Have a brief report for y'all tonight. I'll touch on the permits for July. There were a total of 53 permits issued. Those consisted of 12 zoning permits, 20 building permits, 20 trade permits, and 1 lot disturbance permit. The total amount of fees that the department collected was $21,395.33. With respect to code enforcement in July, there were 5 warning citations mailed for solid waste ordinance violations, and there was 1 mailed for discarded items left in the right-of-way. With respect to our comprehensive land use plan, the consultant has made grammatical and typographical revisions to the plan per our comments. Once we have confirmed that all of our comments have been addressed, we will send the plan to DCM for certification. I anticipate that we will have this confirmed within the next week and hopefully send it to DCM within the next week and a half, maybe 2. So I'll keep y'all posted there. With respect to the planning board, their August 19th meeting has been canceled. So their next regular meeting is scheduled for September 16th here in the Pitt Center at 5 o'clock. I'm also happy to report that on our town website, there's a new town GIS map viewer available. There's a link on the town website. It's under the Planning and Code Enforcement Department page, and I'm going to ask Sheila to bring it up so we can show you where to go to find it. It has map layers that show traffic lights, stop signs, parking areas, SSCA properties, Chickahawk properties, zoning districts, flood zones, pavement condition, index ratings, and parcel information. So you go to the Town of Southern Shores website, then you go on the Planning and Code Enforcement Department there. And once there, there's a tab that says Southern Shores GIS Map Viewer. It's next to the Dare County GIS Map Viewer. So once you click on that link, this takes you to the actual map. So you can zoom in with it. It's very similar to Dare County's GIS. It's operated on ArcGIS Online. So you can click on the map layers there, just like any other GIS, and there you can toggle the different layers like parking areas. And it shows different colors. It'll show where your town parking areas are, SSCA parking areas, CPOA parking areas, shows a different color for each. It shows Chickahawk properties, Civic Association properties. So it's a pretty helpful tool. And then also you can click on any parcel, just like with Dare County GIS, and it will bring up the parcel data such as who the owner is, the address, tax parcel number, year built, etc. And for whatever information you may be looking for that's not provided on the town GIS map viewer, when you click on a property, there is a link that takes you to the Dare County GIS parcel information as well. So feel free to take a look at that and play with it a little bit. And if y'all have any requests or information, that anything else you'd like to see added to this map, we can certainly try to do that.
That's great. What a great tool. Thanks for showing us that, Sheila and Wes. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. And then just lastly, I'll just touch on Tropical Storm Debbie. We are monitoring the forecast for this storm. A lot of uncertainties at this time, other than we're definitely looking at some rain, but we are ready to respond in a worst case scenario. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them at this time.
I just have one question for you. Do you have any update on the street improvement project, Wes?
I do know that the estimated start date is in September.
Okay.
Do not have a date. The work should take 2 to 3 weeks, and it must be completed by October 25th. There are on the list 18 streets that involve 2-inch mill and fill.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have questions for Wes? That's good.
I'd just like to thank Paula, Wes, and my esteemed partner here for going through the land use plan page by page, item by item, letter by letter, and finding umpteen hundreds of changes that should have been made.
A little over 120.
120, okay? And my opinion is they shouldn't have been there. You guys did a lot of extra work, and that's what the job was of the folks that we hired to do that. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, you guys went through a lot of work, and I just want to thank you for doing that. I really do. So, I don't know if we can get a discount now for what we paid, okay? But it seemed like that was their job and not yours. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Understood. Yes, sir.
All right.
Sometimes it takes a team to get it done, and we did, and we do. We are very grateful. We're almost to where we want to be
Yes, ma'am.
with the land use plan update.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thanks, Wes. We'll hear from our fire chief now, Ed Limbacher. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So for the month of July, just start off by saying that the first 5 calls all occurred on July 4th. So please be careful with your fireworks, even though you're not supposed to be using them. If you're going to dispose of them, make sure they are in water and put out, because a lot of the waste can fires from over on Chickahawk and actually the structure fire in Collington were all caused by someone throwing stuff in a can and not putting it out totally. So please be careful. 1 special outside fire, 43 EMS calls this month, 1 person in a stalled elevator, 1 electrical rescue, which basically was a kite in the wires, 1 chemical hazard, 3 electrical wiring problems, 1 or heated effective wiring, 5 of our beach wheelchair delivery for our beach wheelchair program, 1 call for our smoke detector program, 4 public service, 1 standby, 3 canceled en route, 1 odor of smoke, 10 alarms, and 1 lightning strike for a total of 87 calls for July. That puts us just a little ahead. Last year was 81, so not too bad for July, actually. So, anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you for you and your teams for all the work that you do, keeping
thank
us
you.
all
You're
safe,
welcome.
especially around fireworks. Report from our town attorney. Philip, good evening.
Good evening. I'm delighted to report I have no report.
Thank you, Philip. Sheila, anybody signed up for general public comment? Okay. If you've changed your mind, now's the time. I always like to ask if anybody didn't want to sign up but still wants to talk, but okay, no. All right, so we'll move right along then to old business, which we don't have any of, and then to new business. And I believe the chief is going to walk us through, excuse me, number 7. It's on page 19 of your books, Council, concerning the radios.
Again, good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is a new MOU for the Flex CAD system that the county and all the towns agreed to participate in. This most recent one was pretty much put together by the chief in Duck. But I said before I was going to sign off on it, we all agreed that the town of Duck, the town of Southern Shores, town of Nags Head, and Manio would all share in the burden of our town attorneys, who we all share the same company for, give us the guidance. So it's been vetted by them. The only thing I was concerned with on it, and I wanted to make sure it was added in there, and it is that if and when, and it's more like when, they decide after 5 years, because that's what the contract is, to go with something else, that the county is going to pay for our data migration to the new system, because didn't feel it was right. A lot of us have spent almost $100,000, and some of the bigger departments have spent twice that for this new system that within 5 years, if they decide to go with something else, I just wanted to make sure that they're going to pay for our data migration if that happens. And that is in the MOU. I believe we're the last town to get it signed by both the town manager, Cliff, and myself. Again, it's been vetted by the attorneys, and I've reviewed it word for word myself, and we're pretty confident that it's what we need for now. Doesn't make the system work any better, but it gives us some avenues to deal with certain things if we do have problems. So.
Okay. Council, any questions for Chief Cole concerning the interlocal agreement?
Who's the standards committee? Who puts that together? Is that the county? Do they get a rep from every town?
Well, each town has 2 representatives
Okay.
that will be part of that committee, and it'll be an equal vote. So it's got to be a majority vote.
Well,
If they want to change something or something to that effect.
Will one of them be in law enforcement?
They're all going to be,
Both in law enforcement?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions, Council? Looks like we've been requested to have a motion to authorize the town manager and the police chief to sign this interlocal agreement as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Very good.
Thank
We've
you.
We've got our agreement moving
Thank you.
forward. Thank you, Chief. Next, council, is number 8 under new business. It's a public hearing, so I will hand it over to our attorney, Philip, to conduct the public hearing. We're on page 34 in your book.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I now open the public hearing to consider ZTA-24-04, a zoning text amendment application submitted to the town of Southern Shores to amend Town Code sections 36-207B and 207C to establish planned unit developments as a special use, to amend Article 9 by amending the review and approval process for planned unit developments, to amend Town Code section 36-209 by adding cryptocurrency mining as a prohibited use in all zoning districts, and to amend Town Code section 36-171 by establishing that a lot disturbance stormwater management permit is required to remove trees greater than 6 inches in diameter, measured at 4.5 feet above the ground within a front, side, or rear yard setback, or any unimproved lot in all zoning districts, and the penalty for not obtaining a lot disturbance stormwater management permit to remove trees greater than 6 inches in diameter, measured at 4.5 feet above the ground within a front, side, or rear yard setback on any unimproved lot in all zoning districts. I'll call the acting city manager, Mr. Haskett, to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Hornthal. Good evening again, Mayor, members of council. Mr. Hornthal just explained pretty much everything we're requesting. But I'd be glad to go through this page by page or just try to give you a brief summary. Starting on page 38 of your package, page 39. That's the only change we're requesting in section 36-171. We're striking out in the general districts and saying all town zoning districts. And this is the effect of this would, as you recall, we currently require, and we recently amended and put these requirements in place, require a lot disturbance stormwater management permit in the commercial district if someone wants to remove trees greater than 6 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet above the ground in the front, side, or rear setback areas. The planning board discussed this, and they have recommended that this be amended to address or to include all town districts, not just the commercial district. So that is what we are proposing with respect to the lot disturbance stormwater management permit. The requested changes to section 36-207. This would strike out plan unit developments on page 40 of your packets, page 4 of the ZTA. Currently, it shows plan unit developments in accordance with Article 9 of this chapter. But also, if you go later on in the actual plan unit development chapter in Article 9, it says that plan unit developments follow the procedures established in section 36-300, which are the special use permit procedures. So they conflict with each other. So strike out, if it's going to be treated as a special use permit, it might as well be listed as a special use approval. That is the intent with that change. Also on page, we're going forward on page 41, my apologies, page 42, section 36-209, prohibited uses in all districts. We are proposing to add cryptocurrency mining as number 9. This originated from discussion with the planning board based on what at least one of our members read and had heard what was going on in the city of Greenville, North Carolina, where they have cryptocurrency mining facilities. I think they're allowed as an industrial use. And it was causing problems with respect to nearby residential neighborhoods with the noise being generated by these facilities. I'm not an expert in cryptocurrency mining, but based on what I read, these facilities require a lot of cooling systems that create a lot of noise and can be a detriment to the residential areas nearby. So that's our intent with the prohibition of cryptocurrency mining. Going forward to page 44 of your packet, page 8 of the ZTA, these are changes and going forward from there. These are proposed changes to the plan unit development requirements. We're not necessarily changing the requirements or proposing to change the requirements, but rather the review and approval process. As stated earlier, 36-300 treats plan unit developments as special use permits. A lot or some of the language found in Article 9 plan unit developments goes above or goes beyond what the special use permit process requires. As you recall, special use permits, quasi judicial procedure, the town council is the decision maker. One of the things in this process that's currently in the code is that you all would approve it, but it goes back to the planning board before another approval. That's not the way the quasi judicial procedure works. So the changes to the plan unit development language, it's an effort to clean up and make it consistent with what the actual special use permit process entails. So that's a somewhat brief summary of what we're proposing. If y'all have questions, I can try to answer them now or later on.
I got some questions.
Of course you do.
Wes and I spoke about this already to some length, but just the definition of cryptocurrency mining as a use, I prefer that to say cryptocurrency mining facility rather than just the very act of an individual cryptocurrency mining in their house. That's my personal 2 cents.
What page is that on?
That's not really a question for Wes, but would you have a challenge with that, Wes, if that was?
I'm sorry?
Would you have a problem with that if the word facility was added to crypto?
I don't think so. I don't think, I mean.
Is that meeting the intent of what the planning board is trying to achieve?
The intent is not to regulate or prohibit someone who may be able to use in their home, use computers, their personal computers to get in, and be involved in the process of cryptocurrency mining, but it's more to relate or regulate facilities, buildings that are being constructed and used for that purpose alone.
Primary and sole use.
Primary sole use of a new structure that would require a site plan that would have to come to you all. So it's not just something someone can do within the confines of their home, but this is an actual facility where it would be a freestanding structure on a property. So we would have no objections to revising that to cryptocurrency mining facilities.
And then on page 9 of the ZTA, page 45 of your packet, starting on line 27, you have this consideration and recommendation by the planning board. There's some aspects of this section that continues on to the next page that is in contravention of special use permit guidelines. Without going into too much of the nitty gritty, specifically D and E, where remember several months ago we talked about special use and planning board when we revised that. This is requiring planning board to provide a recommend approval or denial. Our current special use language is more that it's a review session type concept without a formal approval or denial. And Wes and I did talk about this a little bit. And this is more of our discussion side, but I wanted you to hear his comments on it. I think those sections should be removed, and I don't want to speak for Wes on that one.
Yes, sir. It's a good point. The recently revised duties and responsibilities of the planning board per chapter general statute 160D refer to planning boards with respect to special use permits providing a preliminary forum, not necessarily a recommendation on the application. So if D and E were to be removed, we would have no objections to that.
D and D.
D and E, yes.
So you're removing which one? What were you proposing?
Page 46.
46 of your packet.
Line.
Line 5.
Line 5.
Line 5.
Mhm.
And there was another reference to planning board approval or recommendation that I had flagged previously. But I might be
So you would
mistaken.
eliminate D
And E.
and E.
You're referring,
and
Mayor Pro Tem, line 27 on page 45, is that what you're referring to?
well, that section starts on line 27, page 45, but the actual change, Wes, is line 5 through 11 on page 46 or 10 of the ZTA.
Right, I had, yeah.
Yeah, and then this is something I did legitimately have a question that we didn't talk about earlier. In the expiration of time limits on the PUD, which is page 8 of the ZTA, line 14, at time limits, the planning board shall review the circumstances, recommending town council that either the PUDs. I'm not sure if that section is in contravention of 160D either.
So ideally, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. It's a question for you. So.
Yeah. So that may or may not be able, it may or may not be in conflict with 160D. However, I do think that we do need to revisit this article that addresses planned unit developments at some point and think about the whole concept of planned unit developments and how we want to go forward with it. So if that is the case, then we'll address it at that time.
Okay, perfect. I'm fine with that.
If there is a conflict, if you recall, we do have a section that Ben Gallup put in there years ago that said if we are, wherever there's a conflict with 160D in the town code, 160D prevails.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
And you got the blanket reference to 36,300 for the procedure too.
Correct.
Can I ask Wes a question? Back to the tree ordinance, that only applies to unimproved lots, right?
Yes, ma'am. It would apply to unimproved lots if someone wanted to remove a tree greater than 6 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet above the ground, outside of the setback areas, inside the setback areas. So that in a residential, the RS1 district, it would be if you wanted to remove trees of that size in the area that's 25 feet from the front and rear or 15 feet from the sides. If they wanted to remove trees that size in that box, then that it would not require a permit.
Unimproved commercial as well?
This would apply to all districts, unimproved commercial, RS1, RS8, RS10. Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, staff did not ask for this change, correct?
The planning board, the
planning board
discussion generated or
From the
was
planning
initiated from the planning board. Yes, ma'am.
Originally, the town council asked for the language as it applies to the general commercial zone unimproved lots. That was our request to staff, was to make
Yes,
that
ma'am.
change. Okay.
But it doesn't prohibit them from taking down trees. They just have to get a permit to do it.
If they'd be in violation if they removed a tree in the setback areas of that size, that would be a violation. But they still, yes, they can apply for a permit and remove whatever they want. This doesn't prevent tree removal. It just requires a permit in order to be in compliance.
So like dead trees or
If it's in the setback.
unsightly trees or. Is there such a
Unsightly
thing?
trees.
Unsightly trees, I don't know.
Careful. But essentially,
It's requiring notification and permit process to
Right.
go and clear into the setback on an unimproved lot.
Right.
And most often, any clearing on an unimproved lot is going to require a lot disturbance permit anyway. The question, Wes and I were debating about this was, is that going to require full site planning and four corner elevations and all that other additional survey field work? And as written, it does, which is why as council, we'd initially sort of said, we don't need to do this in the residential zone.
and ultimately, no trees are preserved
Yes.
by this action.
That's correct.
Because when you purchase a lot in the town of Southern Shores, you purchase all of the rights associated with that lot, which includes making decisions about what you want to do with the trees. Period. Full stop.
We, per our land use plan, we do encourage retention of trees, but historically, although it's been discussed many times, tree removal has never been prohibited. That's correct.
No, and other major concern.
It's in violation of some of the homeowner associations to remove the trees, CPOA. They don't, doesn't work together. I guess that's, you can say what you want to in the town, and CPOA, they don't want you taking the trees down. So, I mean, know what we're doing, and you got a plan on doing it anyway if you do it without a permit. Then they'll just cut it down again.
Again, no trees are saved with the
No trees are safe,
CPOA.
right,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
but you could be in viation in a homeowner association. like-
Yeah,
just like the
understood.
CPOA, or an SSCA, I don't know where they're at on it right now. So,
And then the other question relating to that, and I don't think this is a sticking point, but there's no emergency removal provision in either the commercial district or the residential district.
Yeah.
I don't really care, but at the same time, it should probably be there. Because, I mean, if a tree's about to fall on Paula's house and I got a lot next door, I'm gonna go remove it with Wes's if it's a Sunday. So I'll probably get a violation. And that's going in, if that's a situation, I gotta go get it surveyed, have my house corners and general elevations. That could take 3 weeks to develop. just to get a
Everything is
tree out of there.
associated with getting the proper permit. Correct.
Any other questions for me?
yeah, how deep is a crypto mine?
How deep?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Depends if you're using geothermal.
What? Geothermal? Yeah, geothermal on the Outer Banks, really? Come on. So you don't want to be crypto mining at home, that's what you meant by changing it.
Well, I mean, I know of
On the
individuals
computer, you
that
can
have
crypto
had
mine,
home
yeah.
crypto mining
Yes.
operations and no neighbors ever been disturbed. But I mean,
Right.
if I were to go repurpose a property and completely revamp it and put in a server farm, I think we should have that as prohibited use. But
Okay.
the individual use, it's no different than online chess playing. I mean, we don't want to reach that much into people's lives, I don't think.
I had to look it up on the internet. I had no clue what this was. I will just tell you.
Wes, are you going to summarize everything we just talked about?
Yes, sir.
He's in the question period. Are we?
That's the question, yeah.
Yeah,
What do you got? What do you got?
We're still in the public hearing. Philip's still in charge.
Yep.
Any more questions for Mr. Askey? Thank you. Richard Filling is signed up to speak. Richard Filling, floor is yours.
Evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Richard Filling. I live at 131 Crooked Loop in Southern Shores. Pretty much most of my comments you have already identified regarding the tree bill. So my real question would have been for Wes in that what restrictions, requirements are there other than simply securing a permit to cut trees? At the planning board meeting, everyone pretty much, well, not pretty much, concurred that this is nothing more than a pass-through of paperwork. If I have an unapproved lot and I want to clear and cut those trees, I simply apply for a permit, I get a permit, and I cut the trees. There are no safeguards for those trees. I ask you to please, this is, again, nothing more than a blanket approval. I ask you to please, I urge you to send this back for tighter restrictions that the town members and the planning board consider language to safeguard those, specific trees within the setback zone, other than just securing a permit. We need to, I understand, I'm an environmental engineer. There are danger trees, there's dead trees, so forth and so on, that need to be cut. I have a couple on my own lot that need to be cut. They're very close. But at the same time, I have live oaks on my tree, on my property, that fall within the setback zone. They will not be cut. I urge you, please do not approve this without going back, without sending this back for tighter restrictions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Filling. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak? Come forward to the podium and tell us your name and where you live.
Good evening, Duke Garrity, Outer Banks Home Builders Association, I'm the Government Affairs Director. I wasn't going to say anything tonight. I looked at it, I said, I don't see, this seems like a solution in search of a problem. But it also seems like it is a tree ordinance being disguised as a stormwater ordinance. I want to remind the board that you do not have statute authority from the General Assembly. You have your town attorney double check on this to put in a tree ordinance without having permission from the General Assembly. It's a statute. A lot of towns have put them in anyway. They're going back. They tried and they did pass a bill about 2 years ago to confirm that. So if you're going to go any further than what's written in there tonight, because I don't see a problem people sneaking out before they're going to clear a lot just to cut a tree down. But I would check before you go any further to see if you have authority to pass a tree ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here like to speak? I now close the public hearing.
Thank you, Philip. So now, council, we usually have a discussion about what we've heard at the public hearing and what's been explained to us by Wes. So anyone like to start us off?
When you heard some of
Don't
my
all speak at once. I guess we all
recommendations.
spoke what we wanted to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll say that I'm not crazy about the change on page 39, line 26, from in the general commercial district to all town zoning districts. Primarily because I think it's overregulation. And I think when people buy a lot, they buy the rights to the lot, as I said before. But all the other changes that Matt recommended and what appears to have gotten sign off with Wes, I have no problems with. Anybody else? Have any thoughts?
Just one thought. I mean, this is a classic case of individual property rights to do what you want with your property, whether you want to clear cut it or whatever else. Vice, a regulation to encourage people, may not even be encouraged, get a permit and to identify the trees and go through another hurdle. So it's just a classic case of the two hitting up against one another. I don't know if I have a position on it, but a lot of times if I don't see a benefit, I'll go with the individual property rights to be able to do what you want with your lot.
Well, it doesn't preserve any trees, as Mayor Maury said. It just adds a bureaucratic hurdle.
Mhm.
I mean, it's often a hurdle that will already be jumped by somebody trying to build on a lot, but at the same time, it is, again, no emergency provision. If you just wanted to remove some trees because you thought they might fall on your neighbor's property, you have to do a whole lot of survey work to get there.
Do we know how many?
And why not?
On an unimproved lot.
Yeah, on an
This
unimproved
only deals with unimproved lots.
Yeah.
But do we know how many unimproved lots were even dealing
Like
with?
280, 300, isn't it, somewhere?
That many?
280, 300, does that sound
I'm guessing.
ballparkish?
It's in the 200s, I think.
I would guess that it's in the 200s. It's been a while since I've run the calculation. I couldn't say with certainty what the number is exactly, but I would guess in the 200s.
Out of what, something like 2,800 total lots in the town? Residential lots? Okay.
Well, I guess my question is, are we really preserving the tree canopy or not by voting for or against this?
Well, no trees end up being preserved necessarily unless people, dealing with their surveyor or their builder decide, sort of change their mind, have an epiphany about, oh, maybe I should save that tree. But we do that anyway when we interact with folks. We encourage as much tree cover to remain on the lots as we can. I mean, that's what staff does.
And to Mark's point, the ARB applications imply as such too. I mean, you have to denote what area is going to be cleared and what area is going to be preserved and whatnot.
So sort of educational
I mean, that's-
opportunity there.
Well, I mean, it already occurs with the ARB applications. Right? I mean, it doesn't enforce any tree preservation.
So if you apply for a permit,
And the
You
big
just get a
the question to
permit?
some degree, why 200 lots should have trees preserved, but 2,600 shouldn't. I mean, it's, I don't, but if we're getting into the technicality of it, I mean, it seems wholly unfair, but.
and I think from one of the comments, we probably can't say you can't cut down live oaks, but you can get rid of pine trees.
I don't think you'd want to. Often that's where the driveway needs to be, or that's where the septic field needs to go. I mean,
I mean, you're the builder, so.
yeah, I mean, I've tried to move driveways to dodge a live oak and had my client say, no, I want it straight and pull that live oak out. So it's, this as written doesn't achieve really anything, as both public comments pointed out. But
I mean, on what basis would you turn down a permit?
you wouldn't. There
He
is no.
wouldn't.
There is no.
Well, then-
There's no reason to turn one down. Just get a permit.
So I mean,
Do we get a fee for the permit? Oh.
But-
We do get a fee, okay.
So we get a fee.
Well, they have to get a fee, they have to get a permit to develop a lot anyway.
Yeah.
This is just an extra, I mean, it's not like we're adding another fee. Although we could, no, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Tree
Revenue
removal
opportunity.
fee per tree, $10,000.
Yeah, no,
That's
we're not
tree
gonna do that.
preservation by capital.
It just adds another step.
Yeah. I think there should be a provision for the emergency. I think that it's definitely, I mean, and even to, I don't want to get it, that's too much. I was going to say, if you go down the canals and you see the unimproved lots on the canals with the trees that are hanging out of the unimproved
There's some
lots,
improved lots.
it's
that
worse
have-
than in the streets. But, and, being on a canal, I kind of see that. I don't know. I just, people move to Southern Shores for the trees. I've heard that so many times. I've only lived here almost 20 years. And that's what drew us here. Number one, it's the trees. But when you buy the property, you can do what you want. But I can tell you, I've seen lot after lot developed in that time. And I've seen the ribbons around the trees and I watched the tractor just knock them down. Just knock them down. They decide they don't want to do it. So it seems like a fruitless exercise in some ways to want to save that unless the homeowner who's building really has an affinity for trees.
And that's
And-
often what it really comes down to is
Yeah.
whether or not the individual property owner. I mean, I've heard it all over the years. I want every pine tree gone. Well, I've seen these pine trees take more hurricanes than some of the live oaks. I've seen the black gums withstand a lot more. Some of the hickories rot out faster than others. I mean, it's just, and I'm not a certified arborist, but some people have their trees they love. Some people have their trees they hate.
Yeah. And it's
really
expensive.
determined by that individual.
Trees are expensive too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're absolutely expensive to maintain and all that. But I think there needs to be some provision in here for, like you said earlier, Matt, for emergencies. I don't know if it would ever be denied.
Well, there's another consideration for emergencies you need to think about, and that's the individual rights of neighbors. If you came to see me and said my neighbor's tree on its unimproved lot is leaning towards my house and it's getting worse, what do? I'd say we're going to write him a letter. We're going to insist that he remove it and insist that he remove it immediately. Well, if the permitting process slows that down and then the tree falls on the house, you're going to have some unhappy citizens. It's just-
Well, just a thought, to circle back to Mayor Moore. I wasn't really intending this when I was reading this earlier, but I mean, as an initial thought, most of the consensus of the council wasn't to extend some of these provisions to the residential. It was to keep in the commercial, and we could continue that. I mean, we could just, because rather than rewriting for emergency provisions and all this stuff and assuaging concerns, just we'll move past this part, keep the general commercial, strike all town zoning, and keep the ZTA rolling with some of the other changes in the other sections that we talked about. I mean, that's a motion
That's a motion?
that I could probably make fairly quickly.
Okay.
Or, I mean,
Are we ready to make a motion, folks?
I want to hear what he summarized.
Okay, here we go.
Let's hear the motion.
You have the floor, Matt.
well, you guys always do this to me. I'll make a motion to adopt ZTA 24-04 with the following changes. Page 3 of the ZTA, line 26.
What page
Bring-
is that?
It's page 3 of the ZTA, line 26. Would keep the struck out words, the general commercial, and strike out all town zoning. Then moving on to page 6 of the ZTA, line 17, add the word facility after cryptocurrency mining.
Is it facility or facilities?
I'm either way, facility.
Facilities.
Plural?
Plural.
I'm hearing plural
Plural.
from our staff, okay?
And then on page 10 of the ZTA, strike lines 5 through 11. And that's the motion. And I would also say, in addition to that motion, that per Wes's comments, I think Article 9 in its entirety should be revisited.
Strike 5 through 11. Okay.
Wes, did that track
Yep.
right?
Mm.
All right.
So we have a motion. Is there a second for Matt's motion?
One more question. Can I have a?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Does that address the emergency or what? Help me
No, it
understand.
just took the residential.
We're just going to put that in, but we should have, I mean, your point, Philip.
We can't address that like tonight.
No, okay, all right. I mean, your point is, I had a neighbor who had a dead tree right on it and it was leaning towards our house. He removed it. He and I talked and he removed it. Okay. So,
That's
anyway,
put another-
but that's neighbors getting together. Yeah, yeah. But it was on improved lot too. It wasn't on unimproved. Okay. All right.
All right, so
I'm
we have a motion. Is there a second for Matt's motion?
I'll second it.
Rob is seconding.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. And then continuing, some requests for staff would be additional work on,
I think it's on Wes's agenda already, but just
Okay.
that whole PUD interacting with special uses, that's the reason Wes advances to us, that PUD section needs to be just revisited, and he's already on it.
okay. And then a request to staff for some sort of
Emergency.
something about emergency
Yeah.
tree removal. We need to come up with something that benefits both residential property owners and commercial property owners. Okay. Is that good, Wes? Okay. All right. Any further general public comment?
Are we doing? Okay.
Okay. I'll give you another chance if you decide you want to comment some more. Council business, we're going to talk about future accessory dwelling units. Page 49 is a memo written by staff, town manager, yeah, from Clift concerning consideration of accessory dwelling units. Wes, do you want to just very quickly get us started about why we're having this discussion tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Town manager provided you all with a memo. It goes into and it provides a definition of accessory dwelling unit per the American Planning Association. And on July 15th, yourself, Mayor Pro Tem, met with Chairperson Andy Ward, Planning Board Chairperson Andy Ward, myself, and the town manager to discuss the idea or potential idea of allowing accessory dwelling units in the town. We currently allow accessory structures with living space that do not rise to the level of a dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit. But there are a lot of things that you all will need to take into consideration, and you all would probably request more information in order to make a decision as to whether or not you want to move forward. But I think tonight, we just wanted you all to have just kind of a general conversation to see if it's something that you all want us to gather more information on and provide to you, so that you may decide to pursue them at some point in the future. So you all could ask us to provide you more information about them. You could ask the planning board to look into it, or however you all want to proceed. But this is kind of just a beginning conversation on accessory dwelling units versus accessory structures with living space. That's what we're asking for.
Okay. Just to, while you're still standing there, there's some General Assembly action, or could you just sort of generally speak to what our friends in Raleigh have done so far?
Yes, ma'am. There's a bill, there was a House bill that was introduced, and then there's also a corresponding Senate bill that would mandate local governments to allow an accessory dwelling unit. And by mandating, that means if their lot coverage is already over 30%, you've got to allow it. If it doesn't meet our setback requirements, you have to allow it. I think one of the most recent versions, there have been several versions of that bill or those bills. There hasn't been any movement on it in a while, but it did include, I think it was it's either a 5 or a 12. I think it was 5-foot side setback from a property line, but that was it. So at some point, it's possible that the state will mandate that we require that we allow accessory dwelling units. So if we were to allow them, this would be a little bit ahead of them, but depending on how that language comes out from the legislature, we would, if we did put accessory dwelling unit requirements into place, the legislature, what they put into place could supersede and we'd have to amend them.
There's a couple of larger issues. If you want to think of it, of this whole decision-making process as a framework, we have accessory dwelling units. Think of this as a Venn diagram. That's one circle. You have short-term rentals. That's another circle. You have long-term rentals, another circle. Then you also have the issue of affordable housing, another circle, and then also just accessory buildings and structures. So think of all of those together. And then if you have forces pushing on all of those circles, you have the whole notion of individual or commercial property rights. You have the General Assembly saying, hey, we may take away the town's local authority to do anything in this area. And then you also have the notion of the whole notion of maintaining the single-family residential character of Southern Shores as another driving force against these 5 circles. That's not a decision framework, but that's really the environment that we're dealing with when we just talk about accessory dwelling units. So all of those factors are coming into play. It's not just the accessory unit, it's all those other things that are there. And there's a lot of interest in those forces that push all of that. From whatever, from affordable housing, folks who are pushing one way, to the single-family residential character of residential units of Southern Shores pushing another way. So this is the kind of environment that we're dwelling in. I'm not saying I have a solution, but that seems to be the way things are moving.
Well, and I think the affordable housing crisis is a big factor in this. I mean, it has changed my thinking about this because every day I see pleas from people who live in Southern Shores and elsewhere in Dare County just saying, I work here full time. It's just me and my cat. do you have a room I can rent or 2 rooms and these are people who want to live here and just simply can't do it. So if somebody wants to put an apartment over their garage and they're not exceeding the lot coverage, I don't have a problem with that. Now, the lot coverage issue, I think, is huge, and like Wes said, the legislature might take that out of our hands. But it definitely, I think, all those forces are at work. They definitely are at work.
And then what's the impact on the infrastructure of Southern Shores, as well as, police, fire, whatever else, in terms of, let's say, or, I thought of, okay, would we permit, you think of these notion of tiny houses. What happens if somebody wants to put 3 tiny houses on a lot in Southern Shores? It meets all the requirements for, sewage and, septic fields and whatever else. And it meets all of the lot coverage notions. Do we want to permit that?
Don't we already?
Would that raise the ire of a whole host of different folks who said, maintain that Southern Shores is a single-family residential community, not a series of little mini houses on a lot. So I think these are some of the issues that we have to take into consideration.
It'd be pretty simple to limit to 1 accessory dwelling unit available per lot. That'd be pretty simple. But,
Let's say, family compound.
yeah, no doubt.
Whatever
Actually,
else.
my dad would love that. But
Well,
I've got one in Virginia too. It's pretty cool.
There you
go.
Well, and we already have garages and boathouses. There are a lot of
Accessory
Accessory
structures that don't have a
structures.
human being living in it.
Right.
Or that have a human being living in it without cooking facility.
Right.
So it's
that we know of.
yeah, that we know. I think of it in 14 occupants, 30% lot coverage. Beyond that, if there can be a 7-bedroom rental home adjacent to me, a house with a small secondary suite, that doesn't concern me too much. 2 probably would, Rob, legitimately. 3, and you start metastasizing and thinking about the horrors of that. But it's we have covenants in town that already permit it. We have covenants in town that do not permit it.
Right.
And this has been sort of the start and finish of the conversation as far as my brain's gotten, because we can do all the work we want. I think we need to have an assessment of the covenants. And I know often the town and civic association don't necessarily look at each other's documents. I think in this case we should. And I think that we should apply a graphical map of what those covenants restrict and what they don't, and see what we can first touch. Because we might create the best ADU language in the world, and it's not permissible in 90% of the town. That would change maybe what we would allow. Like if it's only permissible in the large oceanfront lots, maybe 3 houses is okay. I don't know. That's probably only going to go to short-term rental or family estate homes. So it's not necessarily going to help our long-term housing situation. But I will say ADUs is, I think California's done it, Colorado's done it. They've adopted it as use by right. This notion that the legislature is going to do something, this is one of the tools in the toolbox that these legislatures are doing. And one way to provide leadership would be say, we're not going to necessarily wait for the legislature to shove this down our throat and take away our setbacks, but we're going to craft a way to try to provide more housing affordability and access to housing within our community. Because some of that single family obsession is what led to the housing affordability crisis that we're dealing with. And the idea that this is the only type of housing that is available to people in this region. Now, I don't disagree. What attracted our family coming here is that very single family thing. So it's definitely a tightrope, and I'm not afraid to embark upon it. But I do think the covenants is probably the first issue to tackle. And if that's a request to SSCA to forward what they've got, we split up. I think there's 68 versions of it. I'll take 15. You take 15. We can go through it. It doesn't take too long to figure out which ones do it, and then we can cross-reference that blocking out. I wanted to throw it to the planning board, but I think Chairperson Ward wisely dodged that.
Well, it does seem like there's some definite information, data gathering that we are interested in. And I don't see embarking on that path unless ultimately this council thinks this is something that we ought to pursue. So that's kind of why we're having this discussion tonight. If there's this notion that we think we want to pursue this, first step, I think, would be get some more information. Covenants, number of lots that are under 30%.
Oh, yeah, that was something else
lot
we talked
coverage.
about. Much of what's already been developed is already at your max lot coverage. So any ADU that we contemplated would be within the existing building structure, which theoretically you'd even do that now, actually. You could have a sort of inside the building, accessible, separate cooking facility because you can't regulate the interior layout of rooms. So it's all in one heated area. You have 15 kitchens in there. It might be 15 or 7 one-bedroom apartments.
I've got one next door right now.
Is it a nuisance?
No.
Yeah.
It was planned that way and it's permitted that way. I mean, and it's separate.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 2 families, same family.
And that's another thing is, especially with affordability, is having sort of multi-generational housing. I don't think is an anathema to Southern Shores ethos.
That is, it's multi-generational.
I mean, as my mom ages and looks to what's happened in the future, I mean, she's often talking coming to live with us. And if I could put a little apartment on, that would be fantastic.
I think we need a lot more information.
Yep.
We
Yeah,
need to know
information
everything's
is-
out there. I mean, this is a good discussion, and I mean, it's an issue, you know. Get the land use plan updated again. So, but I mean.
I was waiting for you
but
to
I
open
think
that
we
door.
need
The
a-
land use plan asks us to start this conversation.
So we need to, we need to really have a lot of information here and a lot of public input. I mean, that would be absolutely, I'm sure once it gets out to reconsidering something like that, there's gonna be
There might,
a lot of comments.
might
which
generate
is
some
good.
interest,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
and there's
Okay, I mean, we need some help, but in the next breath, you know, wherever you go right today, I mean, you can't hire the right people, you can't hire enough of them, we can't get the school teachers, we can't
Right.
get the policemen, we can't get the EMTs, I could go on and on, you can't get the docs. You know, I mean, and you could just go on and on with some of those, not to mention just the service field as well. So, I mean, there's gotta be some solutions up and down here that we've been, you know, that we need to play. I agree that we need to get out in front as much as possible with the, in front of the legislator.
Well,
you know, because what they're doing.
Well-
I've watched these mini houses in Seattle. We have a daughter who lives in Seattle, and they have these mini houses where they literally put them in the backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're doing it in Raleigh right
Yeah,
now, as
yeah.
we speak.
Yeah, so, I mean, and they're
Granny flats.
literally maybe 100 square feet or 150
Right.
square feet at the most. You know, and you just set them down. That's what they do, hook them up.
Really?
And it's meant sleep, facilities, you know, personal facilities and hot plate. That's it. You know, so it's something we just have to think about for the future. It's just my two
And
cents.
I think-
Let's get the information. Yeah.
Not to belabor, I'll say one thing. The reason I keep thinking about starting with the covenants is if there's so little geographical area where this is even something to be entertained, there's really not a whole lot of point in entertaining it.
So, so the 2 pieces are the covenants and the number of lots where lot coverage is some percentage under 30. What, like 25% as opposed to 30%?
You could probably start there because
Is that
there's
a reasonable number?
modifications with driveways
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
You have to be determined.
Well, we'll start there
Yeah,
and
start
see,
there,
and
yeah.
see.
And
what-
some of
where
that's
that
going to be
gets us.
guesstimation because they're going to apply, I guess the county GIS people can tell us, but they can take the square footages that's already on the tax records and apply it to square footage and get a guesstimation. Driveway is going to be about 800 square feet. So it's going to be a gray area, but it'll give us a snapshot.
The harder part is the covenants, I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
And that's a ask to both SSCA and CPOA.
And some of that may already be digitized.
I'd be interested in what Martin's Point covenants are in that.
I think they allow it, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure they do.
Well, and then there's the whole issue of, what are other
Actually, they've had
towns in
exchange.
Dare County doing? We haven't
Exactly.
talked about that.
Exactly.
Because I'm rather ignorant on what other towns are doing. Is that a third piece of information we'd like to
Absolutely.
request?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Martin's Point is Dare County.
Exactly.
I mean,
So we
it's
should say, what are other
it's
towns
unincorporated,
and
yeah.
communities doing
Yeah.
in, okay.
I should rephrase. I know some that exist in Martins Point. I'm not entirely certain of what their covenants say.
Okay. All right. So do we have, so that's direction to staff, I believe, for those
Right.
information. And do we have direction to planning board, or do we want to wait until we get information back from
I'd get the data. yeah.
staff? Okay, so at this point, we're gonna take those steps.
Just staff.
Okay,
Unless you want a planning board to go through the covenants, which was my ask. I don't think we
Staff.
could stop that.
No, stop.
Staff's gonna need some assistance. I don't mind, like I said, breaking out just the 5 of us.
okay. We'll
start.
ask for volunteers.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I think we're satisfied with that. Before we adjourn, we've got some opportunity for council member comments. Let's see, I try to mix this up. Paula, would you like to go first? Sure.
A couple of things. I represent the council on the Albemarle Rural Planning Organization, and we're going to meet on August 21st. And I don't think there's anything big at this point that's on their agenda, but I'll report back on that. And also, I've been kind of appointed to head up this revitalization of the cemetery group. And I've met with probably 20 people in town that own plots in the cemetery, have family members in the cemetery. And we've just walked through, looked around, chatted. Cliff's met with me, Elizabeth's met with me. And there's some general consensus about things that really need to be done. And we have a substantial amount of money that's earmarked solely for that cemetery. So we have some funds. We were very fortunate that Andy McConaughey, who lives here in Southern Shores and is a certified arborist, met with Elizabeth and I, and we walked, and I think he also met with Cliff, and walked around, and what are some things that everybody agrees on that need to be done and that are possible to be done. And I'd like to see us start looking at those. One would be to reposition the cemetery sign and do some plantings around that sign, just simply because it doesn't have any real impact where it is. It's on the side street, and the arborist Andy has a very good spot for this. Remove weak or hazardous trees, which he's a real tree lover, and he doesn't want to remove anything that doesn't have to be, but there's some that are. There are also some kind of historic trees there. There's some dogwoods that are over 100 years old, live oaks that are over 200 years old. So we want to try to do what we can to nurture those. Some pruning, enhancements for the grass. And he has some ideas about how to top dress the soil, seed, maybe do some limited irrigation, and possible new plantings. So those would be, I think, some good first steps that we could take to, the Public Works group has already gone in there and done a great job of cleaning up the cemetery. It looks much better already. So I don't know if we need a motion for this, or we can just ask Cliff to start pulling together some estimates for us on how this work can be done. And Andy has been very generous with his time, and he's willing to really continue in that role and give us a lot of guidance on what we need to do. So I'd like to see us, because his suggestion is that we start with the soil enhancement this fall to make sure that by next spring it would look much better than it does now. You know, it's a very pretty little place. I've spent a lot of time in the cemetery. It's a very pretty little place, and with some new plantings and some grass, I think it could be, and we also need to look at the benches, but I don't think we need to look at those just now, so.
Yeah, I'm all for just authorizing the town manager to
Yeah, me
implement
too.
Go for it.
implement the improvements. I think we've done what we said we were going to do, which is reach out and talk to members of the community who have lots there, family members there and so forth. It's one of my favorite places in town. I know I'm on the record saying that. It still is one of my favorite places in town. And I would love to see it be better.
And one of our residents in town worked with Duckwoods Country Club, and they actually planted a row of shrubs between the country club and the cemetery, because that's helpful to both groups, and I think that's going to be a nice improvement. So people are very interested in beautifying that area.
Okay. I think message sent. Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, and I think I gave all of you the letter that I got.
Yes.
That the mayor got.
Thank you,
from me.
Andy, for taking
Thank you,
the time
Andy.
for
Thank you,
this.
Andy.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Andy.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have much as a comment. I think we have a subcommittee meeting for the Housing Task Force this Friday, which has been moving right along, but not a huge amount to report.
Okay. Rob?
We had a meeting of Current TV, which is the educational access channel. And the one big issue is they're going to move up the date for submittals for any videos. It's going to be January 15th. So therefore, between now and January 15th, for any proposals that the council and or staff want, they need to be in by that date. One interesting thing for the council and staff to consider is that a lot of the towns now are, instead of doing little shorter videos for X amount of money, they're taking the whole $5,000 that they have and they're producing something a little bit more significant. For example, the town of Nags Head is really going to do a history of the whole life-saving service up and down the beach. And that'll make a good, in essence, TV program, whether we wanted to do something more on flat tops here in Southern Shores, a little more, history and the preservation aspects of it, or whatever the topic is. We may want to consider using our funds, the $5,000 for videography and whatever else, for a bigger project than a series of small ones. That's just it. Issue 2, and this is just an observation. I'm out walking around the town on the sidewalks, and the jungle is encroaching. So with all the rain that we've had, you have all of the vegetation starting to come in on the sidewalks. Whether we can encourage citizens to cut it back or Public Works to cut it back, and I mean, I thought if somebody doesn't want to cut it back, that's our town right away there, and we probably have the right to cut it back, but it might extend over onto property that somebody could put a little ribbon around their mailbox and we won't touch it. But the whole point is, I think we have to start cutting that stuff back so that you provide access to pedestrians and cyclists who use the sidewalks in Southern Shores. You're out there too with your dog.
I am.
So
I am indeed.
you got the jungle.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Rob. Mark?
Well, you heard about the Outer Banks promise from the tourism board, and I think that they're really doing a good job. In general, receipts for meals and for occupancy were slow in the first quarter. It was soft. But this is the first year, I think, that we're going to have a resetting year. I've said that before. 21, 22, 23 were just incredible years here, tourism-wise and everything else. I think we have a settling down of people coming in and the rentals. They're still good. It's well within the budget that we set here at the town and with the tourism board too. The receipts that we're getting, but some people, when they see the Outer Banks Voice or the Coastland Times, that occupancy down 10% from last year, it was expected, plain and simple. And there was a lot of questions whether we could sustain what we were experiencing the last 3 years. But I think the summer has all indications are, because things are always months behind on receipts. But bookings were good in June, bookings were very good in July. And all you have to do is drive around here in August and you'll see there's a lot of folks still here and a lot of folks still coming in. And the last question I always am asked is, when's the bridge going to be built? So
And you mean
hopefully in
the
our
Mid-Currituck?
lifetime, it'll be built. I guess
Mid-Currituck
that's what we
Bridge.
can say. But we'll go forward for that. But that's all that. And tourism board didn't meet in July, so I've got nothing else to report.
Thank you, Mark. I did have a mayor's chat in July. I think it was July the 17th. We had 4 folks come for a chat. The things that we chatted about were housing, the Juniper Culvert Replacement Bridge, not the Mid-Currituck, beach grass sand fence plan of action for the fall. And that was it. Those were the things that we talked about.
No
And
traffic.
potholes. No mention of traffic. Potholes. Can't have a mayor's chat without pothole discussion. Our next meeting of the town council will be on Tuesday, September the 3rd. And I have to impose on you for one final story. So a few weeks ago, we had an epic Saturday traffic event because we had a fire in southern Currituck County, coupled with a head-on collision somewhere in the Pine Island area. And we had people on Hillcrest and Sea Oats lined up bumper to bumper until almost till the sun went down, almost till 8 o'clock at night. I have a friend who lives on the north end of town, and before it got dark, she wanted to walk up and just sort of see, what it looked like traffic-wise at Hillcrest and Sea Oats. So she walked up there, and one of our Southern Shores police officers was there. And he was directing traffic, making sure, people could go in the direction they wanted to go without hopefully hitting each other. And she saw him doing that, and that was notable. And then she saw one of our visitors get out of their car and start walking towards the officer. And her first thought, and mine too, when she told me the story was, uh-oh. But she was close enough to hear the interaction between the officer and the visitor. And the visitor said, "Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. And could I get you a bottle of water?" So that I thought was a story worth sharing. I certainly appreciate the officer taking it upon himself to do that. And as far as I know, we did not have a fender bender at that intersection that day. So I'm going to give him credit for that. And I also want to give credit to the visitor for being thoughtful. And even though they may not know about the Outer Banks promise, perhaps they were living it. So anyway, that's my last story for the night. I would love a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
We made the motion and seconded it.
Oh, you did.